A Pew Research Center poll shared that only 42% of the surveyed population responded that being part of a Catholic parish is an essential part of what being Catholic means to you personally. This makes Jesus' parable in today's gospel all the more significant and urgent. A sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seed fell on the path, and birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground where it had little soil. It sprang up at once because the soil was not deep, and when the sun rose, it was scorched and withered for lack of roots. Some seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it. But some seed fell on rich soil and produced fruit, 100 or 60 or 30-fold. As parish communities, what are we doing to cultivate the seeds that have been entrusted to us? Do we provide ample, rich soil for seeds to grow? Or do we choke the fledgling seeds by creating a culture that is not conducive or even detrimental to healthy flourishing? Do we create rocky ground by quantifying grace and weaponizing sacraments? Do we perpetuate thorns by crafting divisions and distinctions that are not of God? Do we leave people vulnerable to the birds of isolation and fear, insisting that we know best instead of listening and accompanying? We cannot lament that people are not coming to our parishes if we refuse to be places of nourishment and support. But to create safe spaces, we must be willing to make that space ourselves. Following the example of Christ, we must lower ourselves, choosing vulnerability over power, humility over prestige, and weakness over strength. We must be willing to make room in our hearts and minds for other voices, even when they challenge what we find comfortable. We must be willing to work for peace and justice, even when it is not convenient. We must be willing to not only advocate for, but stand in solidarity with the immigrant and the refugee, the person who lives without a home, and the person who lives with anxiety and depression. We must combat the evils of abuse and racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia in all forms. In doing so, we cultivate an environment where seeds can grow, where people can thrive. But we would be totally ignorant if we think we do this all on our own. While we must work to cultivate the ground, the psalmist reminds us that it is God who waters the lands and breaks up the clods. It is God who crowns the year with bounty and harvest. Everything that we do is a response to God's invitation. May we respond to this invitation with renewed zeal, remembering that we cannot expect our parishes to grow or even survive if we are unwilling to accept God's invitation to collaborate in the vineyard.